You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace, this is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose. Let's go. Thoughts can keep you down, pushing deep until you drown, or they can keep you up strong, focused on the now. Glass half full, or has it been emptied out? Well, that's all up to you and your mind. Do you doubt anything, everything, not a thing? Make my thoughts work for me, manifest what I need, what I want, what I see. I could be anything, I attract all the things that I see. I believe I'll achieve as I breathe in and out again and again. I don't doubt, I sit in a plan and I found out that I can execute if I'm driven, if I listen, if I learn all the wisdom. Read some books, something written, watch the best, teach a system I invest. Never hidden, I ain't scared, ain't no chicken, I take dares. I'll be winning, you get back what you're giving. Find the reason that you're living, what you're good at, all your gifts and what you love. Take a risk and find out what you've been missing. Yeah. You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace, this is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose. You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace, this is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose.
Party Pals, GRC Mafia. We're here to break down barriers, foster collaboration and community, working towards a more secure future for everybody. Definitely a learning and growing environment. So we are going to have Matthew presenting about incident analysis and talking a little bit about that. So we'll transition over to that in just a moment. Definitely drop your questions or any resources that you would like in chat. Now, YouTube does not allow any of the links in chat, but the best place to do that is through our Discord server. So you could hop into our Discord server, go over to our live chat channel, and then you can post your different resources and also share like your social media if you'd like to connect with the rest of the community out there. Don't share anything that you don't want to be public. If you happen to do so, reach out to me on Discord, LinkedIn, or contact@studygrc.org. Also, another thing, I'm going to go ahead and keep mentioning this for a few of the different streams, but we have kind of gone a different route as far as like any potential paid sponsorship goes for our streams. Instead, we're just going to start highlighting some of the other creators that are out there in the space doing some awesome stuff. So please stand by, and then we'll go get onto this presentation here. Welcome to the Party Pals.
Do you love cybersecurity and GRC? Do you like analogies stretched further than my hairline? Then do I have a channel for you. Hi, my name is Cameron, also known as Cam, and I want to invite you to check out and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Cam Goddess, where I dive into various topics, frameworks, terms, and foundational knowledge within the broad categories of cybersecurity and GRC. I'm passionate about these things and about taking complex concepts and making them more easily understandable, more easily defined. Everyone is a nerd about something, so come, nerd, learn, and grow with me.
Cam did such an excellent job on his ad roll there. But yeah, that's what we're starting to do. We've done it on, I think, the last couple streams now, where we're just trying to highlight some of the other awesome creators out there. We have a couple other ones that are coming out as well. But yeah, let me go ahead and get Matthew pulled up here. Thank you for joining us again today, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We have a little bit of a shorter one this week. We're doing incident analysis. We do have a video we're going to be watching today that is about an incident that happened in Texas at a refinery. How is everyone doing today? So today we're going to go over the steps of what we need to do a incident analysis, the things that go into it, what can be caused from it. The importance of this is to prevent anything future from happening. This also will help develop the safety culture in your facilities because it shows that you're caring about your people. And then we always have the legal and financial protections when we're doing our jobs efficiently. So, the standard process we would be looking at is finding the root cause. We have reporting in action. So, having your people reporting everything, documenting everything, uh, really helps with a lot of preventing an injury. And then we have planning. So we would plan for what we're going to be doing if we're going to be implementing a new engineering control. We are going to plan that out, plan every step of it. The better your plan is, the better the outcome will turn out to be because you guys will all be on the same page. You won't have one person doing one thing, another person doing something else. You'll all be working for the same goal as long as you have good planning and good communication. And we would collect the data, gather all the evidence and everything like that. Make sure everything is documented very well, very nicely. Anything that needs to be recorded with OSHA gets recorded. Anything that needs to be done on your local, state, and county side gets done efficiently. So, majority of the people that participate in an incident analysis, you're going to have the victims and the witnesses that you'd be talking to. You have the safety officers or safety professionals that'll be leading the incident. We have the management responsible for implementing changes. So, generally, the people step ahead, the safety officer and the people that would be working directly with the machine, they're all going to be involved trying to come up with a way to prevent the injury later on, along with your expertise. And then we have operational staff. This would be like engineers, maintenance, stuff along those lines, someone to develop what you're trying to come up with. And then we have auditors that can come in and provide oversight, like third party contractors uh, that you can request to come into your building and take a look at what you're trying to do. And they can give their 2 cents on whether or not they think it's a good idea, bad idea, what risk you may be looking at, all of that fun stuff, which can give you a real good idea of whether or not it's going to be effective. So, an incident gets defined in a few different ways. So, you have classification. What type of incident happened? Are we talking about a slip, trip, and fall? Or are we talking about a head injury? Are we talking about a cut, et cetera, something falling? Then we have immediate causes. So, this is one thing we always look at is what are the immediate causes? Was it due to equipment failure, human error? Were they breaking SOPs? What went wrong to cause this to go wrong? And then you have your impact. So depending on the injuries and property damages and what losses and if there was environmental issues that came from it, that's depending if there was needs to be an impact assessment and that sort of thing gets saved with all of the other injury notes, all of the other recap for it. So that way you guys can go back and take a review for it. Hello, Cam. We loved your little ad at the start of the video. It was awesome. Where? So, location and environment's very keen on workplace inspections. So, if you're going to be doing an incident report, you're going to want to have the physical site. So, don't just put, if you're working in a factory, don't just put the factory address. Like, put where the incident happened. The incident happened at a specific station in your factory. If it happened in the bathroom, break area, smoking table, you're gonna wanna put that down so you guys can review that area and you don't get lost later on going, wait, what machine were we working on? You're going to want to list the environmental conditions, whether it was raining, sunny, storming, etc. outside. Even if you're working inside, it's not a bad idea to list them because you might be able to find some type of pattern with it raining outside, for example, and increasing the amount of slip and falls in the factory. Because you might have water coming from underneath a bay door, for example, which is really common, or a leaky roof. And then you can kind of help identify that if no one's reporting it. And then you can like review that and get it repaired. So, safety infrastructure that's currently in place. Did you have light screens? Did you have anything in place to help with safety? Did you have any machine guards currently active that should have prevented it but didn't for some reason? That can help kind of identify if you have something in place that doesn't need to be in place. It's very common having too many safety things can cause other issues. And then, what was your emergency response? Hello. Then what was your emergency response? Did you guys have a response in less than 20 seconds from your emergency responders and they handled the situation nicely? Or did the emergency responders take a minute to get there? Let's say it took like 3 minutes instead of less than 1 minute. You can go to your responders and be like, hey, like when you guys hear that call, you need to drop what you're doing, whatever you're doing, shut off your machine and go straight to the incident because you don't know what's happening. So you can kind of enforce that with them, or if they didn't follow procedure themselves, like you can review the footage and make sure they put on their gloves, make sure they handled the victim correctly. Uh, and then if there's any hazardous materials in the area that could have potentially caused an environmental or physical impact, marking down like, "Hey, yeah, they had this in their area," and you can make note like, "Hey," like, that's not a good idea, especially if they had a large amount and it wasn't necessary to be in the area. Marking that down and talking with the whole factory going like, "Hey, we don't need to store this stuff in our area, keep it in the storage area, only bring small amounts at a time." So, timing and sequence. So this is where we will map everything out from what happened. So we have pre-incident. That's where we're marking every decisions that are being made before the incident. What led up to the injury, to the close call, uh, what were they doing? What decisions were they making? Were they making good decisions beforehand? Was there any weird conditions that was going on? Was the machine acting funny at all? And then you have the exact occurrence. So what happened? What time, shift, operation? Uh, what was the machine doing exactly when it happened? Was the controller of the machine doing anything weird at the time of the incident? Then we have the response with our emergency responders if needed. And then we have the post incident where we get the treatment and all of that stuff. This is where we're at right now, where we're investigating it. We're taking a look into everything that's going on. And now we have a little video for you guys that Chris is going to get started. So, this video is about the BP Texas refinery explosion. Uh, it was a very, very bad incident that happened due to a lot of failed safety equipment being used out in the field, which caused a lot of bad things to happen. And no one was able to notice due to the safety stuff being not working correctly. So we'll watch this video real quick. Go ahead and start it.
At about 2 a.m. on March 23, 2005, isomerization unit operators began introducing highly flammable liquid hydrocarbons into the raffinate splitter tower. In normal operations, only about 6.5 feet of liquid should be present in the bottom of the tower. Near the base of the tower, there was a level indicator that measured how much liquid was inside and transmitted this information to the control room. However, this indicator was not designed to measure any liquid above the 10-foot mark, and above that point, operators would have no idea how high or how dangerous the level was. A high-level alarm activated and sounded in the control room when the tower overfilled, but a second redundant alarm failed to activate. By 3:30 a.m., the feed was stopped, and the level indicator showed that the liquid had filled the bottom 10 feet of the tower. We now know that this indicator was not providing accurate readings. We calculate that the tower was actually filled above the range of the indicator to a height of about 13 feet. At about 9:50 a.m., operators began circulating the liquid feed and adding more liquid to the already full tower. Even though the liquid was going into the tower, there was no flow out as specified in the startup procedures. The valve that controlled the liquid flow out of the tower was left closed. 10 minutes later, at about 10 a.m., operators lit burners on the furnace to begin heating up the feed, part of the normal process. Unknown to operators, the tower continued to fill rapidly with liquid to more than 20 times the normal level. We now calculate that the level reached 138 feet inside the tower, while the inaccurate level indicator told operators that the liquid was below 10 feet and falling. Around 12:40 p.m., a high-pressure alarm was activated. 2 burners were turned off in the furnace to lower the temperature. The valve specified in the procedures for controlling pressure didn't work, so an operator used a manual chain valve to vent gases to the blowdown drum and into the atmosphere. At about 1 p.m., operators opened the valve to send liquid from the bottom of the tower to storage tanks. This should have improved conditions inside the flooded tower, but the liquid at the bottom of the tower was very hot, and as it exited through the heat exchanger, it suddenly raised the temperature of the feed going into the tower by over 150 degrees. By 1:05 p.m., the liquid entering the tower was beginning to boil and expand, causing the level inside the tower to increase further. At 1:10 p.m., the tower began overflowing liquid into the piping off the top of the tower. Liquid built up in this vertical piping and exerted great pressure on the emergency relief valves 150 feet below. At 1:14 p.m., the 3 emergency valves opened and liquid began flooding the blowdown drum at the other end of the isomerization unit. Some liquid overflowed from the blowdown drum into a process sewer, but the high-level alarm on the blowdown drum didn't go off. The drum filled completely, and bystanders saw a geyser-like eruption from the top of the blowdown stack. The eruption lasted about 1 minute. Liquid fell to the ground, creating a large flammable vapor cloud. This model predicts how far the vapor cloud expanded across the area just 1 minute after the release began from the stack. At 1:20 p.m., the cloud ignited, causing a series of explosions. The CSB believes the vapor cloud was most likely ignited by a diesel pickup truck parked about 25 feet from the blowdown drum. The next computer simulation shows how the blast pressure wave is predicted to have moved after the cloud was ignited. The blast pressure wave is accelerating as it moves through the ISOM unit, causing heavy destruction and igniting more fires. This is the area where 2 trailers were destroyed, fatally injuring 15 contract workers. This videotape, shot by Houston station KHOU, shows the ISOM unit as fires continue to burn after the explosion. You can see the blowdown stack still emitting flames as hydrocarbons are released. Several vehicles were set on fire and burned in the aftermath. Over 50 large chemical storage tanks were damaged. Firefighters struggled to rescue the injured and locate the missing. The Chemical Safety Board's investigation to determine the root causes of the tragedy began the following day.
That was a terrible incident that happened in Texas back in 2005, caused roughly 170 injuries and could have been easily prevented with more and correct safety protections. So, more alarms, for example, they had one alarm on that main tank that happened to fail, and they had a terrible lineup. They had that fail, they had 2 other safety measures fail, and they had a valve chain also fail, which contributed to all of it. Another thing that also plays in role with this is experience with the company. Someone who has a fair amount of experience with the company. I've never worked in the refining industry before, but I feel like based on average days, you can probably tell like, huh, something feels off today, and might make you look a little bit closer on what is going on, which can help you notice something, which is why it's good to have experienced people and not just number of people. And once they uh, once they noticed what was going on, it was pretty much too late. The geyser already erupted. Even if they would have started running by foot and not turning on a vehicle, it would have been happening very, very soon. So that's why it's a good idea to have fail safes in your safety plans. Because without fail safes, if your first line of safety fails, you have nothing to fall back on. If they would have had multiple sensors, maybe one at the middle of the tower, one towards the top, like before it goes into the overfill line, maybe those would have activated and would have given them a bit more of a warning to be able to prevent what was about to happen or evacuate. Uh, with how close it was to catastrophic at that point, it may have been the better call to, instead of trying to prevent the explosion, just evacuate. And that's where you have to have someone on ground at every single site that you trust, that's designated to make those types of calls of whether or not a situation like that is worth saving or just cut your losses and get everyone out as safe as possible. With that explosion, it also caused environmental impacts, which can be very costly. I do not know, and they do not have it posted, what the exact cost to the company was for this incident. But given 15 workers were killed, 170 injured, you have the environmental impact, and you have the destruction of pretty much a full work site. It was a very, very pretty penny. So this is why you also should test all of your equipment out, make sure your sensors are working. There is also fail safes to make sure sensors are tripping correctly. Uh, that could have been implemented in there too. Even though that part is probably pretty hard to do maintenance on, uh, there are so many things that could have been done to prevent this incident, and it was a very, very terrible thing. Exceeded 2 billion. Whew. Yeah, see, that's a lot of monies. Even for a decent sized company, 2 billion puts a dent in a lot of things. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about that? What's some other things that we may be able to do to prevent that from happening in the future, other than like having another sensor up there or having more knowledgeable people on the ground that could have maybe thought it thought of something sooner. So this is pretty much what we went through today. We talked about uh our investigations, how to do analysis, and the usual stuff that happens. We reviewed the Texas incident back in 2005 with the refinery. We always talk about knowledge sharing, share everything you know, everything that you can possibly do to help someone else, especially in the same field, especially when we all work in such a critical infrastructure world. Sharing your knowledge is awesome. Always improve your procedures, training, equipment. The equipment would have prevented that incident. The safety cultures, how to foster them. We're always trying to foster an amazing safety culture in our facilities. We should always be gearing to do that at least. And is there any questions that are got asked throughout? I think I saw one from Cam a little bit ago.
Yeah,
Are
I
there
know.
scenarios where you have to wait for the person involved in the incident to be well slash done getting medical treatment in order to piece together a timeline? Yeah, yeah. So if we can't talk to the individual due to them being in the hospital or not feeling good, uh, we can call them on their personal phone if they're like at home and ask them like, "Hey, can you give me a call when you feel up to calling me?" But if we're not able to make contact with that person and they're out on leave, we'll generally just skip the step for the time being. We'll review camera footage and talk to everyone else, and then we'll circle back around when we're able to talk to them.
Yeah, and that's in regards to this the scenarios, right? This is the one you were talking about.
This was asked just before the scenario of the HP incident.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we also had this question from earlier as well. So, are there scenarios where you have to wait for the person involved in an incident to be well enough slash done getting medical treatment in order to piece together that timeline?
Yeah, that's the one I answered.
Okay. And then there's also this one here. Do you run through incident analysis after near misses too, or at a certain level of near misses?
So, of course, it depends the near miss. If it's something like an employee cut themselves on their hand, for example, we don't need a whole analysis for that. Uh, Pretty much standard things. Cut towards a safe area, not towards yourself. Don't cut towards other employees. Pretty standard. But if it's a near miss that could have potentially caused a major catastrophic thing, like tipping over a hazardous waste bucket or almost getting hit with a forklift or dropping something on accident with a forklift from a high height on accident. Those types of things we'll still do analysis on to be able to try to prevent them in the future.
Yeah, and then also I'm dropping this link in chat as well from OSHA. This has a bunch of resources on incident investigation. One of the things that I really wanted to shout out on here is at the bottom, they have additional resources like the quick fact sheet
Yep.
and other useful resources too that really dig a lot deeper into these topics. I mean, my big key takeaway from this entire portion here is the fact that like this stuff does happen. It can be very costly, which is why the business should be worried about it. And then also, this is where risk and compliance really comes in, and that overlap with the occupational safety. I mean,
Yes.
this is
And OSHA
straight up
has
people.
a tons of great things, especially for people trying to figure out what everything's about. Looking in their standards, looking in their enforcement section. Also, you can look at everything they've been citing people for a very long time and
Gosh.
review everything.
Annual inspection data. I have never looked at this before, but this sounds very familiar. There is a page for HIPAA, for violations to HIPAA as well, where there's literally a website that just lists all of the companies, what happened, and how much they were fined and so forth, like a wall of shame. So that's really the way it looks. So yeah, that's what this kind of looks like here.
Yeah.
Is to see
Well,
what's
and they
going on.
open source it like this, not necessarily to shame the companies. What they're hoping is that like people look at those companies and companies know they're being posted on there, and they more of hope that they're going to straighten up their act and resolve the issue so they don't have to keep going. And it makes other companies more knowledgeable. If you may randomly look at it and go, huh, that's strange. I have to train my employees on how to inspect and use ladders. Like that's a pretty basic skill, most people think. But no, like it's a equipment, and any equipment you give your employee, you have to train them and teach them how to inspect it to use it safely.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's why these topics are so important, because it actually affects people, real people. So yeah, I mean, I think we need more discussions about it, even more so. And then also like going through the different regulations that are on the OSHA website. Man, I wish there was some of the resources like we have for the cybersecurity frameworks and so forth. So, but yeah, if you guys have any questions or otherwise, definitely drop that in chat. Also, another great place is inside of the Discord server, and then I'll actually drop Matthew's LinkedIn as well if you wanted to connect with him directly. And then we're doing this the second Wednesday and the last Wednesday of every single month, if I remember that correctly.
Yes.
Bam. Was
Yep.
there
And
anything
we'll
else that you
have
wanted
the
to add?
next one posted here soon on our topic.
Bam. Sounds like a plan. Yeah, thank you for joining us again, and we'll see you guys next time. GRC Mafia.
Have a great day.